Are we going live here pretty soon? Lauren?
Yes.
Everybody be aware, we're going live.
Are we going live? We are live.
When she says so,
We are.
we are live.
Yes. Ready?
All right.
Fine.
1 minute. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. We'll actually skip the pledge of allegiance and moment of silence. We did it at 6:30. We go right to roll call.
Commissioner Ansoggy,
Here.
Commissioner Rushton,
Present.
Commissioner Bonnick,
Here.
Commissioner Wessel,
Here.
Commissioner Sudislo,
Here.
Commissioner Rettenbach,
Here.
Commissioner Lautner,
Present.
all present.
Thank you very much. So that brings us then to communications, proclamations, and presentations. I just have, yeah, I actually have two here. I'd like to just say I have a great appreciation for Chichi Redbach and for Tony and Sorty. Yeah, these are certificates, of appreciation from the county, from the board of commissioners, from Michelle and Chet. Just for your service, for the wonderful things you've done. I'm gonna miss you calling me boss. That's what I was telling at the chat earlier. So I just wanted to give you this. Let me put my mask on and I just say thank you very much. And PG, I'm gonna miss you getting me to move along and, and being willing to make motions. That really, without a wonderful job, and thank you so much. And we'll make sure this gets to you. Thank you for it all.
Thank you very much, Will.
And I'll make sure I get this to PG. Just want to echo what Commissioner Lautner said, or Commissioner Bonnick said, but Tony, you made a very wise quote, I don't know if you remember this, exactly 5 years ago this evening. You came to our board meeting because it was Gene Winkowski's last meeting, and you spoke very eloquently and thanked her, and you ended up your speech by saying you were a good and faithful servant. So Tony, I'm going to repeat that, and both you and Peachy, you both were good and faithful servants. Really appreciate working with both of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chet.
So then that would bring us then to approval of the board minutes. We have a list here. Go ahead, Commissioner Ansari.
I would move to approve the minutes from the public hearing of Tuesday, January 14th, 2020, the regular session of Tuesday, July 21st, 2020, the executive session of Tuesday, August 11th, 2020, the regular session of Tuesday, September 15th, 2020, annual regular session Tuesday, October 13th, 2020, the public hearing for Monday, October 26th, 2020, the special session for Monday, October 26th, 2020, the special session for Monday, November 9th, 2020, the executive session Tuesday, November 10th, 2020, the regular session for Tuesday, November 17th, 2020, and the special session for Thursday, December 3rd, 2020.
Support. Any questions or statements? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. The motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Commissioner.
We should probably recognize the clerk's office for all of the work on that. I didn't even have time to read them all, and they had to put them together. Well done.
Thank you very much. That's true. Thank you for saying that, Commissioner Wesson. So then that would bring us to approval of our agenda, and I have a couple of changes. I would like to move the airport, which is actually 13C up to 1C. And then, Kirsten, has, what is it, Policaro? Castro has a request that she has done on a late edition, and I put that in number 1D.
Say that again.
1D, D is in dog. So 1C and 1D would be the change.
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Or, all those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much for that. So then that would bring us to public comment, and we do have some written public comments which will be added to our minutes and can be found on the Leelanau web. And otherwise, if you have public comment, please call 231-256-8109. 231-256-8109. Is there anyone here who has public comment? Please come forward.
Gwen Allgaier, Cleveland Township. While we're waiting for a call to come in, thank you, Tony, for being a renegade and speaking your mind and your heart and representing the people. And Peachy, thank you for being my commissioner and doing such a great job for so long. And I look forward to serving the people in District 6 and getting postcards from you. Thank you. And I look forward to working with you all.
We do have a public comment.
Yes, please.
Okay, ma'am, go ahead, please.
My name is Melissa Batoski from Shabytown, Michigan. Miigwech, and thank you, commissioners. I'd like to comment on the GTB resolution that was brought forward at the executive session. The anti-racist resolution to condemn racism in Leelanau County passed this past August, which promotes diversity, inclusion, and equity and equality for all the people of Leelanau County, which includes the indigenous people of the Grand Cherokee Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians. The tribe is asking for support in the Fifth Amendment claim of the Treaty of 1855. This is an opportunity to act on behalf of the anti-racism resolution passed in August. Secondly, just replying back to the anti-bias training that's needed for the county commissioners to promote diversity, inclusion, equity, and equality in Leelanau. This will improve the BIPOC for the Black and Indigenous people of color. Lastly, the land acknowledgement is recommended in the form of a resolution after the GTB resolution passes and proclaimed on the county website, council chambers to promote inclusion with Leelanau County. Without these imperative actions, the resolution does not promote diversity, inclusion, equality, or equity for Indigenous people. So I humbly ask for your vote and action and solidarity to recognize and instill the Indigenous people of Leelanau. Miigwech, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment here, or otherwise, please call 231-256-8109.
Okay, ma'am, go ahead.
Good evening. I am Barbara Burkhardt, a member of Northwest Michigan United for Racial Equity. And at the end of the group, I'm going to offer this letter. Northwest Michigan United for Racial Equity was formed after a racist incident occurred this summer in Leelanau County. In an effort to bring awareness and education around issues of equity, inclusion, and tolerance, we launched a 10-week ad campaign in the Leelanau Enterprise. We also ran several of the ads in the Glen Arbor Sun and by request of Benzie residents, one in the Betsy Current. The first ad directly quoted Mr. Eckerly's racial slur, as well as provided the direct verbatim responses of several commissioners to the incident. If anyone on this board might have felt ridiculed, we ask that they reflect upon the words quoted in the ad, and what about those words causes their discomfort. The remaining ads highlighted particular aspects of racism that occur immediately in our county, to our Native American community and to our Latino community, and more generally across the state and country. We ask that you review the ads again, or for the first time if you haven't already, and read the words of your neighbors about their experiences of racism and how we can start making Leelanau County a more welcoming, inclusive, and tolerant place to live and visit. The ads can be found at leelanauunited.com. And we'd like today to extend a sincere thank you to those commissioners who voted last week to support the request of the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians to seek just compensation for land taken in violation of the Treaty of 1855. Although at a recent meeting, Commissioner Rushton suggested that a focus on racism was unnecessary because it wasn't as if the house were burning down. For the Grand Traverse Band, the house has been on fire since 1855. During the second half of the 19th century, virtually all of the land the band was promised by the federal government was sold off to settlers, lumber businesses, and speculators, leaving the tribe virtually landless, jeopardizing their ways of life, and consequently locking them into poverty. For those who wonder how beautiful, friendly Leelanau County could ever be considered racist, the callous disregard for this history and today's implications is just one example. We recognize the hard work and persistence of the Grand Traverse Band to continue fighting for what is owed to them. And we appreciate those on the board who have the courage and foresight to understand this initiative's importance in making Leelanau County a better place for all of us to live in respectful relationships with one another. During last week's meeting, Commissioner Bunnick remarked that all this attention to racism is making us look bad. We believe the opposite is true, that focusing on equity and justice makes the county look good, shows that it is a welcoming place for everyone, whether a resident or one of the thousands of visitors who travel to our community and support our local economy, and demonstrates that we are willing to do the hard work to create a more peaceful county and country. Saying, as one commissioner did, that all of the county's policies have been examined and none were racist is simplistic thinking. This, coupled with the failure of some commissioners to recognize the band's right to just compensation and extending to our sheriff's department's determination to claim themselves as victims of the movement to advocate for police accountability, is all built on the same kind of simplistic thinking. We are disappointed that the commission, which agreed in a formal resolution adopted before the election to condemn racism and pursue additional awareness training, seems to be heading toward allowing this push to slide. Being educated on racism and dedicated to addressing its many manifestations must be a key part of your ongoing work in next year's cycle. Your continued focus on anti-racism can be a model for other Michigan counties, and we are committed to holding you accountable to your pledge to commit your full attention to advocating for equality, equity, and improving the quality of life and health of all of our residents, as the resolution states. We stand ready to help you build critical awareness of these issues in Leelanau County, and in doing so, strengthen our local government and community. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's any other public comment, please call 231-256-8109. 231-256-8109.
While we're waiting, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I would like to say that, the commissioners did get a copy of Steve Mikowski's comments. And, there was evidently some technical difficulties, but I would like the public to be reassured that we did get those comments.
Yes. Hey, ma'am, go ahead, please.
Thank you so much for taking my call. My name is Ellen Fred. I'm a resident of Cedar, Michigan. I wanted to call to fully support the decision to forward the Grand Traverse Band's request to seek redress under the Fifth Amendment, what's known as the Takings Clause, for the U.S. government's failure to uphold its commitments under the 1855 treaty. I was disheartened by the discussion around the issue and what appeared to be a misunderstanding of at least one commissioner as to how the Fifth Amendment works. Commissioner Lautner asked, would that be like suing ourselves? To which the band's attorney, Mr. Patowski, aptly replied, no, it would be a suit against the federal government. And I'd like to provide an example and an attempt to explain that the Fifth Amendment simply requires that private property must not be taken for public use without just compensation. So I offer this example to help explain how this works. So if say, Commissioner Lautner, imagine that the U.S. Department of Transportation proposes to construct a federal interstate highway, say an extension of I-75 directly through your farm, and although they initially promised to pay you for that taking, they ultimately refuse to pay that promised compensation to you. Would you just let that go, since suing the Department of Transportation would be like suing ourselves? Well, of course, no, you would not. You are entitled to just compensation for the loss of your farm, and you would be well within your rights to seek redress through the legal means. The same is true here. The U.S. government entered into a treaty with the Grand Traverse Band, promising to provide a certain amount of land to the band, and then breached that promise by selling that same land to others. The band is not seeking to reclaim that land. They're simply seeking to be justly compensated for that taking under the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. I encourage you to support the band's efforts to be given an opportunity to present all of these facts to a court and to be heard. And I want to commend the commissioners who have voted so far to support that effort. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Please call 231-256-8109, 231-256-8109. If you have any other public comment. I did send Steve a note saying, sorry about the lack of being able to get through. And I told him I did receive this email. All right, so then I would close public comment at this time then, and we'll move on to the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians. There will be another, is there a call there? Okay. We'll take this.
Go ahead, sir.
Steve Derringer. I'm a resident of Sutton's Bay, and I'm calling in support of the Grand Traverse Band, which is a land claim settlement, actually against the United States of America. So I'm in full support of the tribe, and I hope that the county board here would do the same.
Thank
And that's it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, I guess we better wait a couple more minutes here. See if there are any other public comment. Please call 231-256-8109. 231-256-8109. I didn't catch his name.
Steve Beringer.
Oh, okay. All right, we'll close public comment and move on to our action items. And the first item would be Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians. Their the request. Commissioner West.
Yes, I move to adopt the resolution to support the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians request to Congress for the passage of a congressional reference resolution permitting the band to file a Fifth Amendment claim.
Support, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
It's Patricia.
With that, public comment is closed. Yes. So we will So we have the motion. Are there any comments about this at this time? No. I mean, I guess
No, it will be placed in.
I just had one, and I just thought we're gonna, if this would to go through and follow, we're just gonna be adding more debt to our grandchildren. Is that what we really want to do? Because the government obviously doesn't have the money to pay. So, you know, we're just gonna add it to our children, our grandchildren, whoever, because we're not paying for it. And if I understood it right, they gave them the land, the federal government gave them the land in the treaty for farming. They had no reason that they wanted to farm. They never promised to pay them for the land. You know, and since they didn't use it for farming, they gave it to people who wanted to farm. So, you know, and then wasn't that land bought from Napoleon anyway? I mean, the whole, you know, Louisiana Territory was purchased, you know, from Napoleon. So how many times do we buy the land? So, you know, it just, how far do we want to go back? And so that's what I think. I think, you know, are we going to add more debt? Are we going to add more things? I mean, and were they promised to be paid for it if they didn't farm it? And I think that was the purpose, was to give them land to farm so that they could become farmers rather than hunters and gatherers. And I don't know that they had, you know, as they said there, they didn't really intend to farm. So, I mean, it just seems like we're gonna put more debt onto our children if we do this. And we're, you know, and we were not understanding what happened and how this land got transferred to people who were gonna farm. Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you. Our support in this resolution is not saying that we agree with every claim that the tribe is making. We're not trying to litigate this. All we're saying here is that we support the tribe in their taking their claim in the process, the only process they have open to get their day in court. I don't know if this is a legitimate claim or not, and we are not saying that it's legitimate. All we're saying is let them have their day in court. I think that by the documents that we were given, that there may be a reason for them to make a claim. And that's all I'm saying here is let them have their day in court. I'm not supporting everything that they said. I don't know the facts, but those facts will be rendered in a court, in the Congress. And that's the way it's supposed to be handled. You know, procedurally, this is the way it's supposed to be done. So I support the procedure, and I support them going in this method to see if they have a claim or not. And that's all I'm saying. I don't know if it is legitimate. I don't know if it's illegitimate. All I want them to do is have their chance to plead their case with it, which evidently they have not. So that's where I'm coming from.
Commissioner Rushton.
Well, that was kind of my question in regards to this. I've often questioned why this is before this board. We know nothing about the process, and we know basically nothing about the interactions between the government at that time. So my question is this a requirement that our legislators have put on this board, or is this a request from Bergman for us to sign on to this before he'll begin the process? What is the process? Who knows what this process is? What's the normal process for something like this? Does anybody have an answer to that?
May I speak? This is John Petoskey. Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry. That's what
This process is a federal statute that authorizes an individual to sue in the United States Court of Claims. The statute has to be introduced by a representative of Congress or it has to be introduced by a senator. It has to pass one house or the Senate. And all it simply says is a resolution authorizing the tribe, or anybody for that matter, who gets a congressional reference resolution, to file their claim in the United States Court of Claims for a constitutional Fifth Amendment taking. Congressman Bergman said in the past that he would be more comfortable if we explained the nature of our suit and our claim to the local community, which we have done through the written memorandums that we've submitted over the years and the FAQs that we've provided. We've attended township meetings explaining this in detail. And this is not a process that requires your consent, but in order to get any political process done in Congress, you have to have consent of the local community to a degree for a congressional representative to enter a bill and for it to get through the committee process to pass with bipartisan support. And so that is what we're doing. It's not a procedural requirement that it comes before the county commission. It's a request by our local congressman that we get, that we present the nature of our claim to local units of government so that they will understand what the tribe is seeking. So that's why we're bringing it before the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners.
Any other?
Thank you for that.
So then this would be a roll call vote.
Commissioner Wessel,
Yes.
Commissioner Ansargi,
Yes.
Commissioner Bonnick,
No.
Commissioner Lautner,
No.
Commissioner Rettenbach,
Yes.
Commissioner Rushton,
No,
Commissioner Sotis-Little,
Yes.
4-3.
Okay, thank you. So that motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank Mr. Potowski for being available tonight to answer questions. Joining us. Thank you, Mr. Potowski.
And I'd like to thank the board. And in the future, even for those who didn't vote for it, if you need further information, feel free to contact me and I can explain in further detail and provide you more documents. I would like to say that the land was not bought from Napoleon. This was part of the Northwest Territories. And in fact, Napoleon didn't sell anything to the United States. What the land purchase from Napoleon was the right for the sovereign United States to extinguish title. That right was previously held by France. They had the right to extinguish title against Indians. And what the United States purchased in 1805 was the right to extinguish title. They didn't buy the land from Napoleon. Napoleon never had the land. He only had a right to extinguish the title amongst the European Commonwealth of Nations on how Europe at that time dealt with with Indian tribes. And the Northwest Territory was not included, which was part of Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana, was not included in that Napoleon acquisition in 1805. Of course, that's going way beyond way back before 1855, where our claim starts. So you bring that up as an example of misunderstanding. And if anybody else has any misunderstanding, if they want to find more information, I'm more than happy to share it.
Thank you, thank you. Commissioner Rushton?
yes, I wish you good wishes in your endeavor. However, I do not think that this is appropriate to come before this board. We are not in a position, we just plainly don't know enough. So I just wanted to say that.
Commissioner Sotis-Little?
Do we need to do part B now
Yes.
on item 1? Okay, I just didn't want us to miss that.
Did you want to make a motion on part B?
Sure. I move that that the Board of Commission approve the letter in support of the Fifth Amendment resolution.
Support.
Second.
Okay. We'll have a roll call vote on this.
Does that include that the chairman, you're going to be authorized to sign it?
I'll include that.
Commissioner Sotos Little,
Yes,
Commissioner Wetzel,
Yes.
Commissioner Ansorgi,
Yes.
Commissioner Bonick,
No.
Commissioner Lautner,
No.
Commissioner Rettenbach,
Yes.
Commissioner Rushton,
No,
4-3 passes.
Okay, thank you. Then that would bring us then to the airport, where that would be our 1C here. And we're, instead of down at 13C. So.
So let me start in the middle.
Yeah.
Mr. Klein and Ms. Zeitz can participate. Mr. Klein, as I understand, this went to the Grand Traverse Board of Commissioners at their December meeting, and they passed the Articles of Incorporation exactly as was presented at the joint meeting. And then they endorsed the resolution to go forward. Is that correct, Mr. Klein or Ms. Zeitz?
That is correct, Mr. Janik.
And therefore, the way it's structured is the county board, the Leelanau County Board, to proceed would have to pass the exact same Articles of Incorporation, the same motion, without any modifications. If this board wishes to make any modifications, then it basically would have to start the process of dialogue with Grand Traverse County. Once again, to go forward, both counties need to pass the exact same articles and the same motion. Is that correct?
that's correct.
Okay, just want to make sure you understood going into this.
Commissioner Rushton.
I'm sorry, did you call on me?
Yes.
At this time, I would move to approve ratification of the resolution to be, the number to be determined. The resolution of intent to form a regional airport authority for the day-to-day operation and management of the Cherry Capital Airport that was approved on November 17th of 2020. In addition, approve the adoption of the Articles of Incorporation.
Support.
Commissioner Ansel.
Well, she wants to speak first. You guys have it.
You want to speak first, Commissioner Rushton?
We have been over this in a lot of different areas. I would just open the floor up for questions, and hopefully we can get those questions answered if there are any.
Thank you. As I brought up before, under Article 6, the dissolution, item C, transfer of governance or transfer to the counties resulting in profits after satisfying all liabilities which are approved by the distribution to counties by the Federal Aviation Administration consistent with any existing obligations of the authority shall be divided by the counties as follows: 85% Grand Traverse County, 15% Leelanau County. Right now, Leelanau County owns 50%. Why are we giving away an excess percentage? I'm not gonna argue, whether we should have owned it or didn't own the right percentage all along. This is what we own today. And why would we be giving up to our taxpayers any potential in the future? It just doesn't make sense to me. Why are we changing just this obligation? We own 50% today, and for some reason, well, sure, Grand Traverse County would like to have it changed, but that's not in Leelanau County's benefit. We own it today. It's no different than if you own a piece of property and said, okay, I'm gonna sell it all, and I'm not gonna take everything that I own. I'm only gonna take part of it. Well, I'm sorry. That's not the way ownership works. So I have heard no good reason for Leelanau County to give away that property. The other item that I have a problem with is, oh, let me find it here. Article number 13, indebtedness. Right now, the airport commission cannot go out and borrow money. They would have to come to both Grand Traverse County and Leelanau County to approve any indebtedness. They have never had to borrow money on their own before. And I see no good reason to put that out there to say, yeah, you can go borrow money as long as you don't obligate us. Well, I'm sorry, we're the owners. They shouldn't be borrowing money without coming back and asking us. And that's my position on the indebtedness, is that just to say, oh, we won't borrow money where we obligate you. Well, they can't do that anyway. They have to come back to the board if they want the full faith and credit of the counties. I don't agree with the county giving up the right of ownership, and part of that ownership is saying, don't go out there and borrow against my property unless you come in here and ask me. And that's where I'm coming from on both of those resolutions, or both of those proposed items in this proposed resolution. And I have heard no good reason to give up our ownership rights, either by the either of those items in the proposed resolution. So I do not support it, nor do I think the taxpayers would support it if they knew it was going on. Thank you.
I mean, I guess I can address them, at least the first item about the liability, you know, or the ownership. I mean, the liability was set at 85-15.
Yep, that's what it is today.
Right, and so that's where they're coming from with the 85-15 for the property. So they're justifying that, and I understand that. But to give it up, we actually demanded and got more representation on the board. When you go to the board, we only have 2 members, now we'll get 3. So we've increased that tremendously, and in a board of 9, when you add 1 more person giving you representation, we've increased that much more. And so when you're just talking about the property, you know, we know it'll almost never come back to the point of selling the land. And I understand your point, but as the airport runs, to have more representation in running it, have the 3 as opposed to 2, gives us a huge difference in balance. And Grand Traverse didn't really want to give us any more representation. So we gave a little, they gave a little to get it to that point.
I don't remember this board ever debating whether that was a good decision or not. It never came to our board for that discussion.
Let me follow up on that, because as you remember, both counties authorized the 2 administrators to work with Mr. Klein and to draft agenda items and articles of incorporation. And Mr. Klein will remember the dialogue on this. From the Grand Traverse County perspective, their commissioner is saying they didn't like the 85-15. If we're 50% owner, we should have 50% liability. So that was their logic. And also the property is located in Grand Traverse County. And Mr. Buddick was correct. Some of their commissioners were not happy with the 3 versus the 2. And their logic was, if they're 50% owners of the property, they should be 50% owners of the debt, the liability too. So that was a debate that went on quite a bit. And I guess I'll respectfully disagree at one point, Mr. Andorg, that this was brought up numerous times to the board in articles of incorporation. In the various drafts you received, this was all part of it, the 85-15, and adding from 2 to 3 and so forth. But their main logic from Grand Traverse County was, it's in their county, they are taking responsibility for 85% of the debt. And therefore, in the very unlikely event that there was liquidation, it should be the same amount, or the 85-15 splits, and that's where that came from.
And maybe that was more at our airport meetings where we were there, but we did discuss it here before. Yeah, go ahead.
One, I don't remember having a discussion here about whether we should give up a multi-million-dollar property worth millions of dollars for a higher percentage votes on a proposed commission or proposed authority. I don't ever remember having any kind of discussion about that. You're right, it was in there. And I raised those objections all along and to no avail, evidently. But I just don't agree. I just do not agree that it's worth us giving up millions of dollars to have an additional seat on this authority. I don't see the benefit there. No, and I understand.
Mr. Klein, you were part of that dialogue. Anything you want to add to that?
I would like to defer to Attorney Zeitz. She has her hand up. I think she would have a great explanation on the legal side, so I'll defer to her.
Yes. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So I just want to, on the dissolution paragraph. So there really are two assets that we're talking about here. The first asset is the profits, right? So the proceeds from any sale or of the airport and to a private entity, for example, as suggested by Commissioner Ansorgi. And the distribution of the profits as proposed in the Articles of Incorporation are actually the same distribution of profits that are in the current agreement between the two counties. The current agreement, the 1999 agreement, splits the liabilities 85-15%, and then it, with respect to the profits, it says that any profits that may result in the operation from the operation of the airport is to be split in the same percentage as the exact wording of the current operating agreement. So any profits currently would be split the 85-15%. So that's one form of assets. And then the other form of the asset is the land, which is currently owned by the counties, which will be conveyed to the airport under the terms of the Articles of Incorporation. And that land is currently owned by the counties as tenants in common. So it's basically a 50-50 ownership interest in the property. And so if the airport ceases to operate as an airport, that land, as indicated in the dissolution paragraph, would be transferred back to the counties. And you guys then would, the two counties would own the property as tenants in common again. And then, if it ceases operation as an airport and some form of governance to continue the operation of an airport cannot be agreed to by the counties, or for some reason there's no need to operate an airport anymore, then there's the chain of title issues which would arise when the property, or the bulk of the property, was acquired back in the late 30s from the state of Michigan. There was a reverter clause at the transfer at that point. So a lot of the property, that reverter clause would probably be triggered, and a lot of the property this would all depend on what's going on at the time, but may be reverted back to the state of Michigan. So that asset really actually belongs to the state of Michigan. And then there are pieces of property that were acquired post the state of Michigan conveying the airport property to the city. And those pieces of property were acquired by the city. And then in the chain of title from the city, there's a reverter clause. So any of that property, if the airport ceased to operate as an airport, would revert back to the city. So ultimately, the asset of the property is encumbered by this chain of title with these reverter clauses, that if it didn't operate as an airport anymore, then really the property wouldn't be the county's. It would go back to either the state or the city. So I guess just to summarize, in the large respect, this dissolution paragraph is very similar to the current agreement. The assets, the liabilities are split 85-15%. The profits are split 85-15%. And then if the property is no longer utilized for an airport, it would revert back to the county. So it would revert back to the state of being as exists today. Hopefully that answers some questions and maybe addresses some of your concerns, Commissioner Ansori, about giving up something that you already have, because I think that the way the articles are drafted now are very consistent with basically the parties' rights under the current agreement.
I was not talking about the division of profits from operating the airport. I was talking about the distribution of profits if the airport is dissolved. And that's what it is saying here. So I respectfully don't agree that that's what this says here. And the issue of borrowing money is unaddressed. They've never had to borrow money. Why do they think they need to have that capability of going out and borrowing money without coming back to the owners of the property? I don't agree that that should be done. I understand they would like to be able to do that, but they've never had to do that. And as an owner of a property, I wouldn't want somebody going out and borrowing money and endangering my ownership of that property without me saying that's okay. Would you do that with your property? I don't think so.
Well, as I indicated under the articles, the property is actually going to be conveyed to the airport authority. So it is the airport authority's property, subject, of course, to the reversionary interest of the two counties. And then, the subsequent reversionary interest as well.
Well, my point is, we have a choice in setting up how we want the authority to be. And the choice is, do we give that authority the ability to go out and borrow money in their own name? And I don't see the need for it. They've never had the need for it in the past, and I don't see the need for it going forward.
Absolutely, your position is understood. And I think one of the things that was pointed out by Commissioner LaPointe at the Grand Traverse County, which I think was helpful to the county commission, was that the articles do account for and address amendments to the articles. So the articles, these are not set in stone in eternity. They can be amended in the future if issues arise that need to be addressed in these articles. I just point that out because I think that
We can go back and amend it, but we don't need it today. So why are we including it today?
certainly that would be one way to do it for sure.
I'm not in support of the motions on the floor.
But I mean, you can amend the motion.
This is something that we would have to see, just like we saw this.
Question. And if we, and I understand Commissioner Ansori's concern about indebtedness, if we were not to approve this or to take that out of here, then you're back to needing Grand Traverse County to agree to those same terms?
Correct. Is that correct, Ms. Sykes?
That is correct. Yep. Because the Grand Traverse County approved them as is, so they would have to go back to the Grand Traverse County for their consideration.
I have a follow-up question. Was there any concern on the part of Grand Traverse County on this particular issue?
Not that I recall. Kevin, did you recall any concerns on that issue?
There were no concerns on this issue.
I had raised this issue in our meetings. Were they appraised of our concerns, and did they have any comment?
Mr. Alger advised them of our discussions and the discussions with Mr. Janik. So I would say yes, they've been advised of your concerns. We also had some of these concerns at the study session, and they were discussed. So I think they were in knowledge of these comments.
Any other comments? So Commissioner Rush. Yeah, you're muted. Have to unmute.
I would ask Mrs. Eitz if she would address if the airport had this indebtedness that was not approved, or it was approved under the articles the way it is written today. How does that play out if there would be a problem paying back the debt? How does that work out? Who's going to be responsible for that ultimately?
Well, any indebtedness that I can foresee, I'm not a bond lawyer, so please take this with that in mind. But any indebtedness that the airport would incur, like on its own, would be revenue based. So they would be revenue bonds, or so we would pledge the revenue from PFCs, for example. That's passenger facility charges. Or we would do an installment purchase agreement that for the acquisition of equipment, such as firefighting equipment or snow plowing equipment, those kinds of things. So an installment purchase agreement, if there was a default on that, the collateral would be the asset that we purchased with the installment purchase agreement. So it'd be the fire truck or the snowplow. The revenue bonds, if we defaulted on that because we didn't have enough revenue, then that would be charged, I think through bankruptcy. But that is a little bit beyond my, that's in the bond counsel world that I can't, I don't want to say with certainty, but it wouldn't be the land itself wouldn't be pledged as collateral for those revenue bonds. It would be the revenue that would be pledged as collateral. That's my understanding of a revenue bond.
And thank you for that, because I wanted to make it somewhat more clear for the commissioners that there have been times that the airport we would have been in a better position financially if we could have gone out, say, for an installment purchase on some of the larger equipment. And the other thing I wanted to point out is I thought that was the whole purpose of going to an authority, to allow the airport to operate much like a business operates. Businesses go out every day and incur debt for capital assets. So I'm not quite sure, Commissioner Ansorgi, where you're going with this concern. Maybe you can elaborate on that a bit more.
On this point, I think it should be just like it is today. If the airport really feels they need to borrow money, they come back to the counties and say, here's what we want to do. We want to borrow some money. And if it's a logical thing, the counties will go along, but they got to come back and ask us, just like today. So I see no need to change that. They've never had to go out and borrow money. So unless there's something going on out there that I'm not aware of, the airport's a very well-run organization. I have a lot of respect for Mr. Klein. He's doing a wonderful job, but he's not going to live forever, so, he's going to want to retire someday. And who knows how the airport will be run in the future. So in this case, if they want to borrow money, it should be just like today. Come back to the counties and ask for it. They've never had the need to do it in the past, so I see no reason to change that going forward.
Commissioner Rush.
Well, I just have to question your thought process on that, because what you're actually saying is the appointed board that we put that we have 3 people we're going to elect to that board. So what you're saying is that airport board does not have enough common sense or experience to decide the finances for that airport. It has to come before the board because this board may be a little bit more in tune to what goes on at the airport and their needs. I just don't see that logic. I personally, in looking over the requirements for board members, I think we've actually upped the ante somewhat. We're looking for people that can perform much like a business does, people who have the ability to look over finances, people who have the ability to buy the type of equipment that we need. And right now, you know, when you look at the way the boards are appointed, we don't go out there and look at their qualifications necessarily. I just think that a more informed board at the airport level will be better able to make those kinds of decisions so that that operation will work more efficiently and more effectively going forward. That's my opinion.
Kevin, you go ahead.
Thank you for the comments, Commissioner Ansary and other commissioners on this issue. This is one that I think has been debated fully, and I think it has to be taken in parts. And when we say that, if we're looking to do a bond or a major capital improvement using bonds, that is still outlined in the articles to come back to both counties to ask for their full faith and credit. So when we're looking at the major and debt issues, that still requires us to come back to the counties. So when we take a look about in debt issues and debt, you know, we're talking about those projects that are backed by revenue sources, that are backed by equipment. So these would be standard everyday business transactions. But I think the biggest concern is if we go to do a re-terminal modification or terminal build, and we need to issue bonds on that, and we need the full faith and credit. That is correct in these articles that we would have to come back to both counties.
Commissioner Sudas Little.
Mr. Klein just answered the question that I was going to ask because it looked like there were 2 issues in here, 2 different financial matters. And so you clarified it very nicely. And I think, Commissioner Ansary, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I was hearing your response, your questions, this just was addressed. You did not want to see bonding or major indebtedness on a piece of property owned by the 2 counties. And I know you were looking at reduction of a vote of 2. Well, we get 3 appointments, but 2 of which can be commission members versus 2 from Grand Traverse, where 6 they will be appointing, and that it's not the same as 14 people or 7 and there however many on a county level looking at this. But I think Mr. Klein has answered the concern, and it makes sense that the financial issues are separated in terms of when and how they have to come back to the counties themselves for approval. So thank you very much for that.
Well, you know, my standpoint on this is who's ultimately responsible? Today, they have elected officials that they can come at the county level, that the public can come and they can hold us accountable at the ballot box. If somebody was running again, in my case, I'm not. But under the authority, who do they got to complain to? They got nobody. They got nobody. They can come and complain to the county, but the airport commission or the airport authority is the one that's going to own the property, and they're the ones going to be setting the rules. There's I won't say there's no accountability, there is less accountability. So, and I'm not necessarily saying that's wrong, but in this case, when you want to go out and borrow money, my position is come back and ask the counties.
Any other questions or statements? Seeing none, then we'll have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Wesson. Oh, whistle second.
Okay. Commissioner Rushton,
Yes.
Commissioner Sotos,
Yes.
Commissioner Wessel,
Yes.
Commissioner Answergi,
No.
Commissioner Bonnet,
Yes.
Commissioner Lautner,
No.
Commissioner Rettenbach,
Yes.
5-2.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And then that would bring us to 1B, and that would be Kirsten.
Thank you,
Yeah,
commissioners.
Before she starts, Kristen, I just want to, on behalf of all the commissioners, express our profound sadness over the loss of your partner, Mr. Brian Johnson. Most of you remember him. He came to numerous of our meetings, and it was quite a shock. I know you told me a couple of weeks ago about his health issues. And just from a personal perspective, he was always a pleasure to work with, always very professional, and truly was looking out for our best interest. Many times we sit down, he was looking at ways to make sure the project was done in a proper manner, but also in a cost-effective manner. So please express our condolences to his family.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chet. I appreciate your kind words. He'll be missed. He was a wonderful person.
So each of you received last Friday, I believe, a request from Kirsten. It's pretty much the same request that was made, was it 3 years ago, Kirsten, on the other project?
Yeah, 2018 at the conclusion of the law enforcement renovation project, we came before the board and asked for the exact same request, which in fact is a 179D tax reduction, which will be spread out between both Apollo Engineering and E3. Chad, I'm going to let you, if you have any other comments, I'll let you continue.
Well, just as I remember from last time, I believe, because it was brought up last time, county governments are not eligible for that tax deduction. But we do have the right to assign it to organization that worked with us on the project. Is that very simple overview of it? But that's correct, right? We as a county cannot acquire any tax benefits through this. It has to be through your company or someone that the county designates to, correct?
Correct. And as a government entity, you guys don't pay any tax, but the incentive extends to the designers and the consultants that work with you in order for them to take advantage of the tax. And that's why we're before you today. We are interested in again, applying for the available tax deduction based upon a mathematical $1.80 per square foot tax reduction for this initial project. Yes.
Commissioner Wesson.
A question that's $122,000. That's a good share of money.
Yes,
But I'm wondering, was this a planned reduction at the beginning? Did we get a break on the price because the project really cost $122,000 less?
Well, yes, and we believe that the E3's mission for its clients is to help achieve energy savings however we can. And we set out initially to improve the performance of the building and to save the county money. Historically, the systems that we put in will provide you with somewhere between 30 and 40% of an energy savings. The returns will be diminishing as we add the additional elements, which is why we're petitioning now. We won't be able to have the numbers won't pencil out as well as they will now. So we'd like to ask you for your assistance and for your consideration. It's the same, Commissioner Wessel, as what we did with the law enforcement center. We set forth to not only create a better environment, but to also improve the cost and the energy usage at the law enforcement center, and we've done that. We hope to achieve a similar.
Excuse me. I understand that. I'm just wondering, is there any opportunity for that 61,000 of that to come back to us to offset the cost of the project?
Well, the cost of the 122,000 will be divided 60% to E3 and 40% to Apollo. Should we be allowed to implement phase 2 and phase 3, we will take into consideration your comments. We believe everybody should be a winner here. So however we can make that happen, we most likely can address it.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind sharing, what happened on the law enforcement center project? Were you successful?
Yes. Yes, we've achieved right up to the amounts of energy savings that we've been expecting. So the tax credits, therefore, the tax reductions were warranted. We hope to be able to, once we complete the government center renovation, be able to wrap the whole project together, if that makes sense. The initial project is helpful in that it definitely reduces the amount of the old boiler systems. You're looking at least a 20% reduction in cost there. We hope to be able to pencil that out. We need your allocation letter, or approval for allocation letter at this point to get to the analysis. And can come back to you with information perhaps when the analysis takes shape. It'll take shape in January.
So what you would need would be an approval of the allocation letter with the signature,
Correct.
from the administrator.
That's correct, Chairman. Yes.
So we need a motion for that.
I don't have it from me.
Okay, well, so I make a motion that we allow our administrator to sign the qualification letter for the 179D as presented. If we have a second by Commissioner.
I'll second.
Okay. Any other questions or statements? Okay, all those, go ahead.
I was just going to state, this is, we're not giving up anything by allowing them to do this.
Right.
But we should also not count on getting anything in the future because we do it. Right.
Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. The motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Kirsten.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate your kind words about Brian. He will be missed. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Merry Christmas to you. All right, then that would bring us then to 2021 Blue Cross Blue Shield contract renewal. Commissioner Wesson.
I move to approve the agreement between Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Michigan and the County of Leelanau, effective for 2/1/2021 to 1/31/2022, and that the board chairman, county clerk, and administrator be authorized to sign.
Okay. Any questions or statements? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Then that brings us then to the county staffing request. Commissioner Wesson.
Do we take these one at a time or all together?
Your recommendation came from committee all together, so unless there's a preference, if you feel you need to, they certainly could be all done together. Except for the committee.
I move to approve the Leelanau County I move that the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners approve to hire one full-time law enforcement deputy effective immediately, promote the law enforcement lieutenant to under sheriff at a starting rate of $74,667.21 effective February 13, 2021. Promote the one law enforcement sergeant to lieutenant effective after February 13. To promote one law enforcement deputy to sergeant effective after February 13, and to allow the sheriff's office to hire one full-time law enforcement deputy effective after February 13, 2021.
Rushton supports.
Any other questions or statements? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. So that brings us to the Register of Deeds. Commissioner Wesson, thank you.
I move to allow the incoming Register of Deeds to appoint the chief deputy beginning January 1, 2021 at the 1-year level.
Rushton supports.
Is that both of them? I didn't hear the second one.
No, it's just the first one.
Okay, we're just gonna go with that one. Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Then we want to go to the next one. Commissioner Ansel.
I move to allow the incoming Register of Deeds to fulfill a vacant Deputy Register of Deeds position.
Support.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Commissioner Wessel.
I move to allow the building safety department to fill the positions of building official and electrical inspector as they become vacant in 2021.
I'll support.
Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Brings us to the remonumentation. Commissioner Ansel.
I move to approve the 2021 remonumentation grant in the amount of $28,562 and authorize online signature and submittal of the grant.
Support.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Then that brings us to information technology. Commissioner Ansel.
I move to approve the maintenance renewal for the Know Before cybersecurity awareness training and testing services for $2,295 with funds to come from data processing fund number 636.
Support.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. The motion passes 7-0. All right, the DLT. Commissioner Wessel.
I move to approve to renew the maintenance agreement with DLT Solutions for rapid recovery backup software in the amount of $658.32. Funds to come from data processing fund number 636.
Seconded by Ansel. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. The motion passes 7-0. Then we have the subscription to Safety Net. Commissioner Ansel.
I move to waive board policy on bid requirements and approve the purchase of the Net Watcher software with setup and installation by Safety Net at a cost not to exceed $13,000. Funds to come from data processing fund 636.
Support.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. The motion passed 7-0. That brings us then to the Leland Dam Authority.
Yeah, just on that topic, it'd be helpful if Jen could clarify the financial part of it. There was, I believe, some information that was not completely accurate in the EDS. No one's fault, but I believe, Jen, you caught it. Would like to clarify that, just so the board knows fully exactly what's going on and where the funds are coming from.
Yeah, in your board packet that you had for executive session, you did have a budget that showed $40,000 in that budget, except the 40,000 was not allocated at budget time for that. So at our budget work session that we had on September 4th, Steve Christensen and John Popa of the Dam Authority were both present and requested that a capital improvement safety lock of 31,000, an annual maintenance of 8,000, final engineering payments for projects to be paid in 2021 budgeted at 10. So if you are to go ahead with this request of waiving bid policy and going with a maximum of 40, I propose that that project would not start until 2021, Mr. Popa?
Correct.
So in 2021 of January, I would need to come to you for a board motion with an amendment to bring another 9,000 to 10,000 from the general fund into the dam fund to pay for that improvement. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that.
Any questions for Jen? Commissioner Walker.
Thank you. Yes, what makes up the difference? Why is the difference so much more?
Mr. Popa?
I'm assuming the quote's getting higher.
How come it's so much more? It said 31,000 and now it's 40,900.
There was some engineering on top of that. The other thing is that when he went out and gave us estimates earlier in the year,
You can take it, it's hard to understand it.
when he went out and got estimates later in the year, it turned out then it went back to just one manufacturer. And in these last 10 months, the materials went up considerably. And so the labor stays about the same. But when he went out to bid, this is what he thought he could make it, not bid, he went out to give us some estimates back there. And we still thought we had enough money in there for it and that we could cover it all. But I think you're right, you're gonna have to transfer some money. And that was sort of agreeable as we go along with this dam. It's the best my answer I could give.
Yeah, so I guess my recollection is that we already did the engineering on that. And that was like $10,000.
We did.
So now there's another $8,000 for it, or is that something different?
It's not 8,000 more in engineering. There's gonna be some final engineering document that he has to go get to close the project out, which was already planned for. He has to go get some more material to build this thing. And that's just the way the bid came back. That was 10 months ago that we made an estimate what we thought it would cost.
Yeah.
And to go out for bids and rebid this whole thing, it would come back tremendously higher than it would be to single source this to that guy.
Any other questions, statements? I don't know what you're gonna do. All right. So everyone knows that we're.
Mr. Chairman, so I guess that was a question. How do we know that? How do we know that if we stop and step back a couple months and maybe look to see if there's someone that can provide this for less? How do we know?
If you're asking that question for me, to go out and bid this thing, the information is public document, so I could go out and bid it already and just come in $1,000 under that, and it just wouldn't be right. This guy that built the dam and designed all this stuff and went and got this bid, put his numbers out there to us. And you're not gonna find anybody else that's gonna come in now and go out and bid, which is gonna cost money to go out and bid. You're gonna spend a couple $1,000 just doing that. And the public information is there, and then it'd just be a waste of time and money, Melinda. Your question is why we're single sourcing it, correct?
I guess that's kind of my problem, John, with this, is that it disturbs me a little bit because we were looking at one price, and now that it's out there, I guess I don't know how to justify the increase. Do we have the documents, et cetera? Because now you're absolutely right, and it does get messy if we have to go out for public bid. But I don't know if the difference is going to be 1,000. I don't know if the difference is going to be 12,000. We're just saying, well, because he gave us a quote several months ago, we're going to go with him. And I don't know if he is the only game in town. I guess we don't know. And I'm a little bothered by the difference, that's all, because we talked about this at budget time. We did set a certain amount of money aside that we thought was appropriate. And now to just say, well, we just got to come back in January and throw another 10,000 at this project. Well, where's that going to come from? So I guess I'm just kind of a little disturbed by the whole thing. Not that I'm opposed to the lockout assembly. I think we absolutely need to do that. But I also want to make sure we're doing the right thing too.
The engineer of this machine, he stated that he probably would, well, he won't be giving us a further bill to go out and bid again, because that requires a lot of time. And he came back to us and said, it was like after this budget meeting, he says, let's single source this. If we single source this, I can save you guys a lot of money by not having to go out for bids. I can save a lot of money by having the same guy that built the dam do it, and he built our wall. And if we go out and get a good quote from him now, which he did, he got the quote, the materials, there's only one guy that's making this thing, and he got the materials that came in $6,000 higher than we figured. You'd be spending a lot more going out for bids and trying to find someone else to come up and do this. And if you didn't, we'd be going with the same guy again.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. John, I just want to clarify what you're saying is there was an increase in the cost of the materials that were in the original bid. And that's understandable. Everybody's getting hit with high cost increases over COVID. But the other part of the increase is that he needed additional materials to complete the project. Is that correct? So there was an increase in the first set of materials he ordered, or he planned to order back 10 months ago, that have now increased in price now, but he also needs additional materials to finish the project. Am I hearing you correctly?
I don't think there's additional material. There's just that one piece. The engineer is going to be closing the thing out, and he needed some extra money out of it. He gave the county, I think, a bid to do all this over a course of 3 years. And I don't know how much it was. He gave this commission estimates that if I'm going to go do this and build a wall and raise the floor and stop the water and build a safety device and drill the sump and level this over the next couple of years, it was going to cost so much. And this is the last of his bill of closing it out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so could we have a motion?
So, Mr. Chairman, another question, please.
Yeah, sure.
So who has this been recommended by?
The dam authority.
And did that pass unanimously, all three?
Does it what?
Passed unanimously by the three of you on the dam authority?
There was 5 of us.
5 of you.
Yeah, we reviewed the bid, the prints, got a presentation by the engineer, and we looked at the stuff that came back, and when it finally all came back, we then reviewed it all and voted on it.
So all these documents, has our administrator seen these documents? Has our board chairman seen these documents? Has Steve Christensen seen these documents?
The dam authority, yeah, we've all seen it.
Chad?
No, I have not. No, I have not been part of those dialogue or discussions.
I've seen the minutes, but not the documents.
Other than that, I told Mr. Pope, and he can verify this, that before it came to this board, there had to be a recommendation made from the dam authority.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
I will make a motion.
Yes.
I move that the Board of Commissioners waive board policy on bid requirements and accept a single source bid from Fisher Contracting for T&M costs to perform the fabrication and installation of the gate lockout assembly at Leelanau Dam at a cost not to exceed $40,900. Funds to come from fund number 805, pending council review and approval.
Support, Mr. Chairman.
If it's time and material, I don't know, is there still gonna be a contract? He still has to have the insurance and things.
Yeah, we'll make sure they follow the legal guidelines to protect the county.
All right. Any other questions?
I have a question for John. If there's some hesitation, if we put this off until January and allowed the chairman and the administrator to look at all of the details, would that set us back?
No, we had already planned on doing this next year. We thought we were going to do it next summer. We never intended it to get done this month. He hasn't even started building it. Nothing. We knew we weren't going to have in time. The prints and everything else is available for anybody. I have some back here, but no, we wanted to get it done by July.
I'd be happy to withdraw my motion and suggest we deal with this in January after the administrator looked at the, and if it's not going to cause a problem.
Is that okay with the second? Yeah. Commissioner Sotos, he wants to withdraw his motion. Is that okay with you?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so then we'll just move on to.
I do want to just clarify one thing, just for the future, John. To go out for bids, Laurel does that work with our legal counsel. So there is no cost to that. And I was not involved in any of the dialogue, and I'm not saying you didn't follow proper procedure, but if the decision was made last spring to go out and get quotes, the engineer had to have information to give to the contractor. That could have easily been put, bid proposal that Laurel and our legal counsel have drawn up, and we would have advertised, gone through the process. So I would say that you could have gone out for bids, and I don't think there would have been additional cost. The engineer had to come up with the criteria to give to Mr. Fisher to come up with his bid information. We could have used that criteria and put together a request for proposals to go out for bids. The legal counsel would have drafted, which we have a contract for. And it's done through my office, through the Evans, who posted on all the websites. So in the future, I would strongly encourage you to go out for bids. I mean, I don't know all the details, but you said that the plans were in the process for 10 months. And if you're gonna do it this summer or July, there was time to go out for bids. We could have taken the information that the engineer came up and transfer that into a request for proposal document.
We did make a motion to go out for bids on this thing. And at the time, we were all set to do it. We passed the thing to go out for bids. And that week, then he came back and says, it's going to take me a while to get the bid documents and do this and make all the prints and do all this. And he said, I can save you guys a lot of money if I go back just and work with this guy and single source this thing.
Yeah, I don't want to be because I'm not part of the discussion, but he had to give Mr. Fisher, the company, some direction on what to bid on. That could have easily put into a document to go out for bids. Some requests for bids are very lengthy and some are very simple. It doesn't have to be a long process. We do that through our office. Our legal counsel actually drafts up the legal document. We post it on the websites. So I'm sure we could have taken the information from the engineer that he gave to the company that gave the one bid, transfer that into a request proposal, gone out for bids. It was done this past year, and it's not going to take place in the summer. There's been plenty of time to go out for bids. I'm not being disrespectful to the work of Dan, but I did make a motion to go out for bids originally, and we could have followed through on that.
Commissioner Lautner.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for calling, withdrawing the motion. By just taking a step back gives us another month or even two to take a really good look at this, but also figure out financing. So thank you.
I guess I'm just wondering how this affects, isn't it in this year's budget or is it in next year's budget?
Next year's.
2021.
Okay, so then it isn't gonna affect that either. Right. Commissioner Ensign.
I'm just gonna make an observation here, because I'm not gonna be here next year. But if you remember, you're taking money from the general fund instead of having this paid for by the lakefront owners through a special assessment, which is what most counties do, and we chose not to do that. So get used to this. I guess you're gonna see it over and over and over again in the future. But I don't.
Yep. Or 50%.
Any other questions or statements? Okay, then we'll move this on to the to January's agenda. And then that would then bring us to emergency management, the closed point dispensing agreement. Yes. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, good evening. The state of Michigan and the CDC, since our meeting last week, has finalized the tiered approach for vaccine distribution. They were able to make it as clear and concise as possible. The state of Michigan actually came out on the 11th with a clear and concise breakdown. Basically, in tier 1, there are 3 different phases. And within those phases, they're broken down to priorities and groups. So what these closed pod agreements are going to do, they will work into the health department's plan for distributing the vaccine. This will not be their primary plan in order to do so, but if they have to make any changes based on circumstances, this allows them to provide dosages to our county employees when that time comes.
I move to allow the board chairman to sign the closed point of dispensing partner registration form and make vaccines available to Leelanau County government employees and their family members dependent upon supply.
Rettenbach seconds.
Okay, any other questions or statements?
Yeah, thank you for the explanation, Matt.
No problem.
I guess I'm going to oppose this because I just don't like we're getting into the fact that we're starting to divide people and classify people. And I don't like separating the government from the citizens, you know, and put us into our own separate pod. I just think that just sends out the wrong signal. Somehow I get the feeling from this that government employees are more important than the citizens, and that I just don't think we should be doing this. And so I'll have to have a call. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. So the motion passes 5-2 with Lautner and Bunnick opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. All right, and then that brings us to Park and Recreation Commission. We have the groomer. And I see Mr. Barron's here. Did you want to speak to this?
And Casey.
Yeah, Casey's on also. Oh, or Casey, go ahead, Casey.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to say than what I said last week. This groomer, we're asking to waive the bid process because this is the only company in the United States that makes this groomer. There are other companies that sell them, but it's on a price controlled basis. And it's a little cheaper to go directly from the source.
Commissioner Wessel?
I move that the County Board of Commissioners waive its bid policy and approve the purchase of an 84-inch Ginsey groomer with attachment from Yellowstone Track Systems LLC at a cost not to exceed $7,600. Funds to come from account number 850.756.
Support.
Any questions? Commissioner Ansari?
Casey, I'm sure there are other manufacturers of groomers out there. Why this specific one? You know, why do we have to have this specific one?
As far as the cross-country trail ski groomer, this is the only company that makes them.
Really?
There are other companies that sell them, but this is the only manufacturer. And going direct to the manufacturer is cheaper than trying to buy it from another dealer. We can get bids. Scott looked into this. We can get bids on it from different people, but it's a price controlled basis. They're all the same price and they're all the same manufacturer.
I guess I was wondering who's gonna run this groomer. I mean, we have an employee that works, part-time in the parks during the summer, but I didn't know that we, other than plowing the entranceways, are we gonna now have an employee that we have to run the groomers? Because I know they're starting to groom Veronica Valley as well. So
yes, correct. And Chet, if you can fill in part of this, and Dave also is much more versed on the operation of this. Dave,
I'll let Mr. Behrens go first, and I can follow up because Mr. Behrens asked a question that I had to research. So, Mr. Behrens, you want to go first?
Certainly. Commissioner Bunnick, in the past, it's been Scott Bradley who's done the grooming, and that's been done well. We certainly have had lots of use at the park. The problem with that is that Scott, of course, can't groom it frequently, consistently enough to keep the track in great shape. Real good cross-country grooming really is almost a daily chore. Now we're working on that with two of us, one from planning department and then myself. Mr. Janik has checked this out with our insurance carrier, that our use or driving of powered equipment that the county owns is covered under our insurance. And so we're adding two people to the grooming at least at Veronica Valley. There'll be two additional people driving the groomer. So I suspect I'm one of them. I expect we'll be able to keep it groomed multiple days each week when snow is with us, and that will certainly improve the quality of the track. And through the course of the summer, this is something I heard about 3 different times, 3 different sets of people calling me and talking about, as we were looking at the 5-year recreation plan, et cetera, talking about their use of cross-country at Veronica and the wish that the grooming could be improved. So we have worked on that manpower issue. We're going to have at least 3 of us working on the grooming at Veronica. I don't know Scott's plan for grooming and manpower requirements at Miles Kimberly.
Because I thought Miles Kimberly was actually a snowshoe trail, that they would use snowshoes for it, and it wasn't grooming for cross-country.
Well, I believe you're correct on that.
So we're changing it then, and the Park and Rec has decided to change that. But is the county gonna have to start hiring somebody for grooming through the winter? Or is that gonna be all volunteer?
Volunteer or done by Scott, I'm assuming.
I'm assuming there's been no discussion of hiring more manpower. There has been the concern about volunteer groups which have stepped forward expressing some interest in being able to groom but that's volunteers using county power equipment. And I'm not really sure that that is going to shake out with the insurance coverage. If we had a group of volunteers that were themselves organized, had their own insurance coverage, that might be possible, but we're not at that stage with volunteer groups right now.
But, well, I guess what made the decision to change to grooming from snowshoeing?
Oh, I don't know that there's been a change. In fact, we may add separate snowshoeing trails at Veronica as an example, and probably also at again, I don't know the plan for cross-country grooming specifically at Miles Kimmerly. Given our, well, I just don't. But I don't think it's an either or. I think it's going to be both, and we're looking at adding both at Veronica.
So was the snowshoeing, or I mean, the cross-country skiing in the plan for Miles Kimberly? Was that in the general plan? I don't remember seeing that.
There's been quite an increase in demand for the cross-country skiing. Since it's been done at Veronica Valley, it's been asked for by a lot of folks at Miles Kimberly, so that they don't have, to have two options, two separate ski trails, and you can still incorporate the snowshoeing along with the cross-country skiing. They're kind of go hand in hand. It's not a one or the other.
Okay. I'm just afraid it's going to lead to a wintertime, full-time winter employee if it has to be groomed every day.
And,
you got two.
and that is not our intentions. Scott is on board with this, and I believe his intentions are to groom it himself. And with Dave and Molly helping out at Veronica Valley, that will free up his time to be able to groom at Miles Kimmerly and make this all work. I mean, it is not our intentions of hiring a wintertime employee to groom snow trails.
Okay, well, I was thinking they've got to plow them anyway, so that's will just add another job to what he's doing there.
And it's not a long process. I mean, it's a fairly quick thing to go through and groom it. It's not an all-day job. It is what it's not a big job. It's something that folks have asked for, and a way for us to be able to incorporate another aspect of the park.
Any other questions or statements? Commissioner Rush.
Are we, is this a first time purchase for this kind of groomer, or are we replacing a groomer?
This is a second groomer. The one at Veronica Valley is bigger. It would not fit through the trails at Miles Kimmerly, and it is extremely difficult to try and load on a trailer.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 5-2 with Rushton and Bunning opposed. All right, thank you very much. And that brings us then to Old Settler Park Grub Shack. And the first one is the invoice on engineering work.
Yes, and as I talked about last week, when Schichtel went to pull the permits, it was brought to his attention that this was designated as a commercial project, which was not known by any of us. And that required the print that we had to be an engineered print, along with the stamp of a commercial license. And we did not have the capabilities of that from John Walter, who was the one who drew the print for us, which he drew it for free. I called Steve Christensen right away. We talked it over, kind of made an executive decision to keep the project moving. Had we not done this, it would have pushed the project months out. I don't think we could have held Jamie to it with as much work as he's got going on. And so like I said, we made the executive decision to go out, and Jamie had a line on this engineer, which worked out, and he said he'd do the project, and he did it in 2 days' time and really didn't slow the project down at all. We were not anticipating it being nearly this high. I think it is what it is. It's just not what we expected. But Steve and I kind of made the decision to do it to keep the project rolling. We've waited a long time for this project. It's been, with COVID and everything else, it's been getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And we made the decision to get the project done.
Commissioner Lochner.
Yes, thank you. I would move to the County Board of Commissioners to waive the bid policy on bid requirements and approve the payment of the invoice of JML Design Group LTD for additional work on the plans for the reimbursement of the Old Settlers Park Pavilion in the amount of $3,864.60, funds to come out of 850.756.
I'll support.
So to speak to it, thank you, Casey. Sorry?
Go ahead, Commissioner Lochner, did you?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Casey, for the explanation. I really had hoped that Steve would be here tonight, since I think that he was a big part of the recommendation or the executive decision to make what was deemed the best move possible for Parks and Recreation to get this project done. This isn't a project that came out of the blue. We've, as I said, we've been a couple of years trying to get this project done, and it was go time. I think while it's unusual, if they hadn't made this decision, it certainly wouldn't have gotten done in 2020, and probably not in 2021, because we would have been back to square one with trying to find a builder even interested in doing this project. So that's why I made the motion to support.
Commissioner Rushing.
Yes. In business, these kinds of decisions are typically made all the time. However, in government, we have a different process than an independent business owner. And I am well aware that this project has been on the books for quite some time. I'm fully aware of COVID and all of those issues. It's unfortunate that this project got classified as commercial, and I'd like to know how that happened or why that happened. But with all of that said, two people on this board went out and unilaterally made a decision to spend upwards of $6,000. I asked last week if they went to their own board for any kind of conversation, review, or approval, and they said no. Basically, it was a unilateral decision. And so my question here is to the rest of the board members: when we have another department head that comes to this board after the fact, are they going to be treated as if that's standard procedure? In my opinion, this sets precedent, and I don't know how you can walk this back with any other board member, or I don't think that there should be any repercussions for any other board, or I'm sorry, department head that would come before the board and just go out there and make unilateral decisions and spend money and expect us to pay for it.
Commissioner Redcliffe?
No, my question was answered. Thank you.
Commissioner Ansel?
My problem is a procedural problem. Our procedures were not followed. The administrator could have used his authority to spend money if he had been questioned, and that didn't happen. You know, we didn't follow our own procedures, and you know, I don't know why, but it's always Parks and Rec that we have these issues with, and I don't understand why. It's very disappointing. You know, yeah, you know, we made an obligation, and you know, the county's kind of on the hook now. We almost got to pay the bill, but I am very disappointed in not following our own procedures. A call to the administrator probably would have solved the whole commercial issue with just one call, but that call wasn't made. And if, if the administrator has the authority to spend some money in an emergency situation, that's what we have that procedure for. And that call wasn't made. And I don't know what to say other than, it's always Parks and Rec. I don't understand. It's always Parks and Rec. It's like, God bless you, they're all volunteers, they're all passionate about it, but there's gotta be procedures in place. And if we aren't gonna follow our own procedures, I don't know what we're doing here. I really don't. I gotta support paying the bill because we know the county's good name is out there, and for the amount of money, we probably wanna pay the bill. But there should be some kind of consequence to Parks and Rec for not following our own procedures. And what's the appropriate consequence when somebody does something like this, when they don't follow our own procedures? Just like Commissioner Rushton said, in business, you need to make an executive decision sometime, but the executive decision should have been made by the administrator and not just two guys on Parks and Rec. I'd be very interested in hearing Commissioner Lautner's position on this issue.
May I, Mr. Chairman? Okay, yes, thank you. We had an elected official that made the ultimate decision. As I said, I wish that he had been here. He has been around long enough to have known that call should have been made to Mr. Janik, to at least get him on board and perhaps help guide if that would have helped, etc. This is not a situation where there isn't money in our budget. This is a situation where, while steps were maybe not in line, we didn't have to do a drawing in the first place. So probably would have spent at least that much money or more on drawings if they had to be these commercial drawings. Maybe, we don't know if they should have been because we're a government entity and it's a park, whatever. Maybe they would have been. If they would have, we probably would have spent more. So that being said, it was ratified by the board. The Parks and Recreation Board did back the project. So there's money in our budget. It's just the timing was very unfortunate. And that's why I said I wish Steve had been here to explain this tonight. And I had understood he would be. So I don't know what to say.
Commissioner Rushton.
I believe our elected officials are held to the same policy standards as far as finances go. That's number one. And refresh my memory. It seems to me that we had an elected official that purchased something that was presented to the board after the fact, and that official then had to pay out of pocket because I believe the board made the decision that the process wasn't followed. So I just want to be clear that in approving this, you are opening the floodgates. And quite frankly, I think we're being a bit hypocritical when it comes to the policy.
But this isn't something that came out of the blue. So it's really not apples to apples. This was an approved project. It was just a hiccup at the end of an approved project with available funds in our budget. This isn't something that a couple people just decided out of the blue that, hey, we're going to do this for Parks and Rec. It was crunched. And
A phone call.
As I said, I wish that somebody were here to explain it this evening, and he's not on tonight. So that is unfortunate.
Let's have a roll call vote on this, okay? If you want
another question.
Go ahead.
If we put this off for paying this for a month, is that going to cause any great heartburn on anybody's part?
Casey, how due is this bill?
What's that?
When is this bill due?
I haven't looked at the invoice, but I would expect it to be this month. I've looked at the invoice, but I don't know what the date is on it. I don't have the invoice right in front of me.
If it's a contractor, he's the one that's not gonna get paid, so.
Yeah.
Commissioner Wesson.
Well, in fairness to the Parks and Recreation Commission and to the chair, Casey, nobody on the Parks and Recreation Commission took this lightly. And we had conversation this week and everybody was disappointed. And I think we all learned from this. I think now what we have to do is approve this payment. The work's been done and we have learned some things from it and we'll do better. But there was nobody, the Parks and Recreation Commission didn't celebrate you getting away with something. We had a long discussion about this on Thursday and I don't think anybody was happy with it. Right, Commissioner Lautner?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Just the process. I think that if anybody was unhappy with anything, it was the fact that, why was a commercial drawing thrown in at us, at the last minute when obviously we've been trying to do this for 2 months. The Parks and Recreation Board was fully behind the decision made so that we got the project done in 2020 before the snow flew. So I felt like Parks and Recreation felt like the right decision was made to get it done. And we didn't have any budget overages in the meantime.
Mr. Rush.
I'm not saying that the project should have not been done. I'm not saying any of that. I totally agree. I think it looks nice. They did a nice job. However, what I'm talking about is the process. And how do we move forward with this when this happens in another department in like manner? Are we going to change our process going forward?
Any other questions? Okay, a roll call, please.
Commissioner Lautner, I have you making that motion. Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Lautner,
Yes.
Commissioner Rettenbach,
Yes.
Commissioner Rushton,
No.
Commissioner Sotis-Little,
No.
Commissioner Wessel,
Yes.
Commissioner Ansorgi,
No.
Commissioner Bonnick,
Yes,
4-3.
thank you. So then that brings us into approval of an invoice for additional materials and labor.
So, okay.
You ready for me to explain?
Requirements and approved payment of the invoice from J. Schenkel Construction Company LLC for additional labor materials needed for the refurbishment of the Old Settlers Park Grub Shack in the amount of $3,200, funds to come from account 850.756.
Support.
Do you want to speak to this, Commissioner Wessel?
Is that Lautner?
Yes. And Peachy did too.
I was just gonna second the motion.
Yeah, she was asking, the clerk was asking who seconded it.
Oh.
And Faulkner and Rettenbach seconded it. Anybody want to say anything? Okay, Commissioner Rushing.
I'm just going to reiterate what I said in regards to the last motion or invoice. The process wasn't followed, so we still have the same problem.
I would speak, yes, thank you. I'm going to speak to it. As I said last week, this is probably something we should have anticipated, because if anyone has ever opened up an old building, you know these things happen, and that was quite an old building. So again, would it have been easier to have brought the administrator on at the time? Probably would have been a bit smoother. But once again, I know the right decision was made, because to have just left that roof spongy and gone ahead and finished wrapping it up, we would have had much more money in the future, because that wouldn't have lasted. So it's a good, solid building now. And once again, we have money in our budget. It's, as I said, it's something we should have anticipated with a building this old. And I think it is something that we have learned as we look at what we're going to do with another old building at one of our other parks. I would definitely make sure that we put more money in there than what a bid might be, just silently or earmarked silently, whatever we have to do, or just be aware that there's probably going to be overages, unless we make sure it's bid in such a way that is a possibility. But we shouldn't have been surprised by this either, considering the condition of that building.
Anyone else? Okay. Commissioner Rushing.
I would suggest at the least that when a situation arises like this, that the phone call to the administrator might be in the best interest of moving the project forward in a formal way, you might say. Something that all of us could rally around when the invoices are brought to us.
Anyone else? So will this be a roll call?
Commissioner Wessel,
Yes.
Commissioner Answerge,
No.
Commissioner Bonnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Lautner,
Yes.
Commissioner Rettenbach,
Yes.
Commissioner Rushton,
No.
Commissioner Sotoslittle,
No.
4, 3.
Okay, thank you for that. So then that brings us to potential septic ordinance update.
Thank you, Commissioners. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. We appreciate all your efforts.
This won't happen again while I'm on the board. I really do apologize. I know this, looking back, this was not the best procedure by any means, and it won't happen again with me on the board.
Appreciate that.
The Grub Shack looks great.
It does.
Thank you. It really does. It's a project a long time coming, and it's really a nice upgrade for that park. I'm glad it's done, but hate to have this little bit of tarnish put on the whole project, but I'm glad it's done.
I think we all are. Thank you for your time.
Yep. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
All right, so then we'll come to Bill.
Yeah, just an update from last week. As you know, during our discussion last week, Eric Johnson called in from the health department, and we started talking about, is it possible to take the records that were digitized in Leelanau County and superimpose them on a map? Everyone thought it'd be beneficial. There was concerns about who would do it and what the cost would be on that. And I think everyone's agreement that would be good information to have under any circumstances. So actually, I started thinking about that, and so Friday, Mr. Johnson and I and Rob Herman from our Equalization Department, he's our GIS expert, met about this, because I'm not a computer expert, but I thought, I know Rob quite well, and I thought that he may be able to do this without much of a time expense. And so we met, and Mr. Johnson and Rob talked about what they have on records. And since that time, they have talked several other times, including this week. I met with Rob this morning. He's pretty confident. He doesn't have all the details yet because he has to get all the information from the health department. But he's pretty confident that he can create a map that would superimpose the digital information they have on their records into our field, where you can pull up a map and say, okay, this property we have a record on, this one we may not. It may not have all the detail that's in the records, but at least what I asked Rob if he could do is create a map of Leelanau County that anyone can go to and say, here's the address of this street. Do we have records on the septic system in that property? And Rob thinks he can do that fairly easy. It's easy for me to say easy from his perspective, but based on his work in the past, he thinks he can get this done. Eric and I and him are going to talk again, I think this week or next week, but Rob was pretty confident he could come up with a full plan and at the January board meeting, and may have been able to start the work. He's talking to the tech people at the health department to make sure their records interface and can talk. If they truly can interface the way they think they will, it'd be a fairly simple project for Rob's background to be able to do this and create such a map.
Any other questions or statements?
Could we invite Commissioner Ansorgi to join that January meeting when we see the product and get some more of his input? You're invited.
Yeah, you're invited. But, you know, and I thought about this too, because I thought you had a good question, Commissioner Westphal, about inspections, you know, electrical inspections. And we don't mandate electrical inspections when someone sells a property or at any time after the initial building of the house. We don't mandate it for plumbing, and we don't mandate it for heating. So, I mean, and actually many more people have problems from electrical when they die from it than they do from septic systems. So maybe we should start mandating, you know, every 10 years they get their electrical inspected, and plumbing and heating, you know, and forget about the septic, because those things are much more serious and more people die from them. I mean, you know, so, you know, I thought, is that what this commission should be doing then? You know, I mean, that's why I don't understand why we're attacking something that he admits, you know, there's no evidence from people dying from it, you know, since what, 1940 or something? Yeah, 50. So, you know, so I thought, you know, we don't. What happens is people do that on their own when they buy a house. They get those inspections, and why? And that's what they can do with septic. If they want to have the inspection, they can have it done when they're buying a house. You know, and we don't need to do anything and force another ordinance, you know, more control on homeowners. Let them decide if they want to or not. So I thought you made a good point there.
Commissioner Mike, you are consistent. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Redlaw.
Yeah, I just want to thank Tony for continuing on with this project. And I think that he's being very responsive to many people in this county that are in favor of this kind of information, knowing this kind of information and moving forward with, you know, some septic procedures to take place in the future. So I feel that I've represented my district well in this, and that's what I've been hearing from them, is that that's what they're looking for. So I'm very pleased that we're going ahead with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we don't need a motion to get it on the January agenda. It'll just be there if
Well, I assume I would like, if you don't want this happening, I'd like to know that, because I hate to have Rob do all this extra work. But unless anyone objects, Rob and I will continue to talk with Eric Johnson about getting this GIS map done.
Yeah. I don't you, go ahead, Commissioner Answer.
Thank you. You're gonna get a map. It's gonna say, yeah, we got a record or we don't have a record. What's that gonna tell you? Nothing. The decision on whether you should move forward or not is not dependent on knowing whether you have a record for a particular piece of property or not. That information isn't gonna help you. Even if you know that there's a system there, what we don't know is it a problem? That's what I was attempting to address in the most limited method I could see, where we would address a potential problem. I admit, in all the data out there, there's not a lot of people getting sick out there in Leelanau County from septic systems, that if there's any documented cases. I admit that. But if we're gonna go through the health department, their role is also prevention. That is their main focus, is prevention, not addressing problems. They're gonna address problems if they're known, but their focus is on prevention. So my focus on my proposal was as little as possible to address problems that have actually been documented in the past. Where do those problems occur? And my proposal was to target those properties where there is a history of actually having problems with septic systems. And that's what I attempted to do. So I'm not looking at a countywide ordinance that every piece of property is going to be inspected. My proposal was targeted to only those geographical areas where there has been a history of having problems in the past because of rapid transport of pathogens and making people sick or die. And that's what I attempted to do. So, the discussion of looking at the records, that's going to be helpful in when you get to if you go forward with my suggested proposal of only targeting those areas that actually have a high risk of having a problem. You're going to need those maps to say, where are those areas? We're going to say, okay, a property that is within X number of feet of a river or a lake, a creek, river, or lake. I'm not going to distinguish on the size of the creek, but flowing water. Those are the properties you want to look at and pick a pilot program. Say, okay, I'm going to look at this area and do it for a year or two, whatever the health department says it's going to take them to do, how long it's going to take them to do that for that pilot area, and see what you find. And you may find nothing. And if you find nothing, you say, hey, this was a big waste of time. Let's not do this anymore. And you cancel the pilot. If you find a bunch of systems that are underwater and they're polluting like mad, thank God nobody's been sick, we're going to address those systems. And you say, okay, now we're going to move beyond the pilot area, and any place in the township that's within so many feet of a lake or a stream, we're going to look at. That was my suggestion. Do a pilot program in a limited area and see what you got. Obviously, I won't be here to see it through, but that was my suggestion based on what has actually happened in the past, where we actually have documented cases. And that was my attempt to say, yes, let's take a look at it to see if do we need to prevent this from happening in the future. Because once you get a bunch of people dead, you're not going to bring them back. You're just not going to happen. So that's where I was coming from on this proposal. So, it'll be up to I understand. Yeah. But, a lot of people are, and I understand the health department, they did not like my proposal. Eric didn't like it because we're not looking at everything. They're out there, we need to look at everything, and I understand that perspective. They're public health people. They want to help everybody. They want to address the whole county. from a political standpoint, I'm not convinced that we need to do that based on the actual documented cases that we have of it. So my proposal was a compromise, yes, but based on what documents of cases in the past, where do those happen? So I was attempting to limit it, and by doing a pilot program, you can say, okay, we're gonna look at this area. I don't know, you pick one. Little Traverse Lake. We're gonna go around Little Traverse Lake, and we're gonna look at every house that is within 100 feet of the lake, or 200 feet of the lake, whatever. And the distinction on that distance is really a judgment call, because you're gonna be looking at the house on your map. You can see the house, and you can see the lake or the stream, because they can draw those on those maps. And you're gonna be able to say, yes, these fall within this distance. You don't know that the drain field is in that distance, and the setback distance from lakes and streams is 65 feet. So if I just picked 100 feet, saying, okay, the house could be a little bit further away. I don't know. It's a judgment call. It's a judgment call. Pick something, try it, and you don't like it, don't do it anymore.
Mr. Redmond.
Yeah, I would move to have the Equalization Department continue to work with the Benzie Leelanau District Health Board to gather information that I feel is important to the residents of this county.
Support. Did you want to say anything, Commissioner Redmond?
No, I just, I think we're in an information gathering place, and from what I've heard from the administrator, it sounds like it's going to be a fairly simple procedure to mesh the two sets of records, and we'll just have that much more information about what's out there, when it was put in, where they have fields, where there aren't fields, and then we can go from there, or the next board can go from there.
Well, I would disagree a little bit with Tony. If on this map we have properties that we don't have any records on, that suggests that we may have a problem, because we have records on anything that was installed or approved after 1976. So it would be, I think it will be informative to see the map, to see how many properties along our lakes and streams that we have, that we don't have any idea where the systems are. And I look forward to learning more and keeping this alive.
Any other questions or statements? Commissioner Russell.
Is that 1976 or was it 1972? I think the last time I heard the year was 1972. Do you know the answer to that?
Tony's saying 76.
That's what I heard.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you for that. All right, let's move on then to the patrol car update.
I believe, well, nothing to add from last week. I believe you made a motion to assign one of the cars to senior services and the other ones to be auctioned off.
Commissioner West.
I move to approve senior services purchasing a vehicle from the county for senior services program.
I second, Commissioner Rettenbach.
Any other questions or statements? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. The motion passes 5-2 with Lochner and Bunnick opposed. All right, then that brings us to the boards and commissions recommendations.
I believe Laurel did a revised chart here late this afternoon, Laurel, correct? Was it emailed to all the commissioners?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought it was.
we do have, two that have not been filled out that we probably should do those first before we do the full slate. And that would be for construction board, board of appeals, and then, the planning commission business category. Commissioner Redpath.
I move to appoint Nathan Griswold for the business portion of the planning commission. And Mr. Griswold also for the construction board of appeals.
Okay, seconded by Sodas Little. Any other questions or statements? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 6-1 with the Rushton opposed. All right, so now we have a full slate. Is there any questions or statements about that? Commissioner Lautner.
Yes, thank you. Included in the slate is the two nominees that popped up just out of the blue last week. And I asked that we get those applications from them. Now, I received an email from Laurel with 3 attachments, but my computer won't download them or load them up to the computer so I can look at them. So I'm guessing that those were applications.
Yes, they were.
There was 3. Okay, so 2, Nate Griswold's we had the previous week before. We just hadn't appointed him. So the other 2 were full applications?
Yes. All 3 actually, with Brad Saxon as well.
Oh, and Brett said, okay, and we've had his before. Okay, all right. So they answered yes in all the proper places that we recommend, that we require, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I didn't really look at the yeses or nos myself.
They're yeses. Okay.
Qualifications, answers, yes.
I mean, they met all the qualifications.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions or statements?
We need to actually have a motion to approve this full slate. now,
Yes,
don't we?
yes. That's not, unless you want to do them one at a time.
I do not.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Redpath.
I would move to approve the slate for the commissions and boards that we have completed this evening, in addition to the ones that we did last week.
As presented.
As presented.
We have a second. Okay, that was Sodas Little. Any other questions or statements? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much for that. Now we go to the county clerk motor pool fund.
I move that the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners approve an increase in the mileage charge for county vehicles used to 10 cents per mile per vehicle with mileage over 80,000 miles and 30 cents per mile for vehicles with mileage under 80,000 miles. This to be effective January 1, 2021.
Support.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Then we're to the secondary road patrol grant. Commissioner Ansel.
I would move to approve the supplemental appropriation from the Department of State Police for secondary road patrol funding in the amount of $7,702, amending general fund revenue number ending in 543.001 to $30,264.
Commissioner Rushton, did you have a question or statement? Okay, all those in, as she supported it also. Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. The motion passes 7-0. And that brings us to administration. The letter of understanding. The FOPLC. You don't have that.
It's on page, it's at the beginning, remember, it's 13B, and you moved him up a little bit. Just like, where it is.
It was right after the one that Matt did on the,
Oh, yeah, we moved it up, so it's, should be like 2.
It's on page 7, it's at the bottom of the page.
Thank you.
Oh, there it is. Commissioner Weston.
Move the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners accept the letter of understanding from the Fraternal Order of Police Labor Council as presented and allow the board chairman to sign it into effect on December 15, 2020.
Just
expire on December.
I apologize, but it was over. If you could say that was proposed from us, it was drawn by our legal counsel. We did not accept the one presented by the fraternal order.
Oh.
They presented one original to us. We modified it and was drafted by our legal counsel. So I don't want them to assume we're approving their letter.
Except the letter of understanding is drafted by Leelanau County.
Yes, it was drafted by the legal counsel. It's not the one that they, there's a minor modification.
Effective December 15, 2020 and expiring December 31, 2021.
Yeah, that's one of them. I don't want them to think it's, we're approving their proposal.
That is my motion.
I'll second. Commissioner Rettenbach.
Not your original motion, but as stated by the administrator.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Any other questions or statements about it? Thanks for clarifying that.
Just want to make sure that there's no confusion from the union.
Thank you.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. And then we have the renewal, the master copy. No, we're right back to where we.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you got it. Commissioner West.
Recommend the Board of Commissioners waive its bid policy on bid requirements and approve renewing the service maintenance agreements with NetLink for 2021 at a cost not to exceed $12,776.40, with $11,663.40 to come from account 645-000.000-801, and $1,113 to come from account ending in -801.000.
Beginning with 5.
Beginning with 5.
Yes.
2 different funds.
I will second.
All right. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. The motion passes. This 7-0. That brings us then to the Polycom purchase.
Yeah, let me just give you a brief update on the community development block grants. This is the last time it will be discussed here before it's submitted. As you know, we received up to $368,000 as part of the community development block grant. That's not money that we are in competition with other counties. It's for Leelanau County units of government and nonprofits. So today I submitted, it's not the final version because there'll be other costs associated where we are today. So let me just give you an update on that. We broke the grant into 7 categories. One is reimbursement for protection, which is the plexiglass, everything else. It's PPE, we classify that. Additional cleaning costs associated with keeping the buildings clean. And this is not just from us, it's from all the units of government in Leelanau County. Once we get it back, I'll give you the breakdown, but we've had about 5-6 townships, about 4 fire departments participate with that. The third was virtual meeting compliance, which is a Polycom. Food distribution, so I'm working with Senior Services, Meals on Wheels, Leelanau Christian Neighbors, and Lift Group from Suns Bay to get reimbursed for their distribution of meals. the public service and safety announcement, which are the ads we purchased in the enterprise and some other publications on how to proceed from a safe perspective. And then our cost for overtime wages associated with COVID. So extra meetings for like Laurel's time, the time that Jen put in for the election training, anything was not budgeted, we're asking for reimbursement. So it's a breakdown from Leelanau County, not counting any Polycom purchase that you haven't officially done yet. We're at $60,140.79 from the other units of government in the county. I have received requests for $92,159.96. And, excuse me, for the eligible nonprofits, which is mostly for food distribution and reimbursement, $7,262. So as of today, we have received requests for reimbursement of $251,722.10. I have about $80,000 that have come in the last couple of weeks for units of government requesting pre-approval before they make a purchase. So we hope to meet with the gentleman tomorrow to see the status of those and going forward, because units of government could ask for pre-approval prior to making a purchase. So we actually did it with the Polycom, the second Polycom system. So as you know from last week, Ralph London put a request for 2 Polycoms, one for the jail, one for the community room downstairs. One for the jail did not meet the qualification of community development block grant. And there were other grants that the jail was eligible for. As you know, they received funding from another CARES Act. The one from the request for the Polycom from downstairs was approved in advance. So even though we're asking you to purchase it, we have assurances that money will be reimbursed. And I'm sure the money we spend on this Polycom will also be reimbursed. So the request today is to purchase, because the purchase has to be made by December 31st. And I think Jen put the account number in for the purchase. So even though we have to pay for our funds, we have seen written notification that we will be reimbursed for the second Polycom.
Thank you. So we need a motion.
Yes, we need a motion.
You want to read from this piece of paper?
While we're digging that out, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
You know, I'd asked a question about whether we could get some Wi-Fi for the different sites. Did that go through or?
No, unfortunately not. And Commissioner Little and I, Matt and Jordy had at least 2, maybe 3 discussions with them. They, the chief highway surfer, there may be other opportunities coming forward for that options. But under this grant, it was not eligible. But he told us to keep our ears and eyes open for potential opportunities coming forward.
I have heard from people that, don't have access.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
And, their doctors, want to do everything
Yes.
remotely, telemedicine type thing, and,
Yeah.
they.
Based on the criteria for this grant, it was not unfortunately approved request.
Keep it in the back. of your
Yes, yes, there will be more information coming forward in the near future that may make it eligible for another type of grant. But we did check into that.
Thank you.
Commissioner West.
Yes, I move that we approve the purchase of a Polycom system for the Leelanau County meeting room at a cost not to exceed $9,100. Funds to come from account number 101.100.101.970.000.
I will support that.
All right. So Red Dot also supports it.
Not also?
Yeah. Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you for that. And that brings us to review of financials. Commissioner Lund.
Thank you. I had some breakout early in the agenda, some breaking up, I should say. So I apologize. But did we miss Blue Cross and Blue Shield?
No, we did that.
Was it early in the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Like I said, there was some breakup and I just wanted to make sure we had gotten it. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions about financials?
I did not have any.
All right. Then that would bring us then any committee reports, recommendations, or resolutions? Nothing? How about special reports, staffs, commissioners, affiliated agencies?
Well, since this is Commissioner Anzor's last meeting,
It's not my last meeting.
the last regular board meeting, I do want to follow up on his constant request to check with the Attorney General's office about Ironman. And unfortunately, they have not returned any of my phone calls. So I did want to let you know that I did follow up on that, and I appreciate you constantly reminding me to follow up on that. But as you know, we filed a request over a year ago, and they finally responded in January. They said they were going to assign someone, look to it, and then they said that we didn't have standing, it had to come from one of our state senators or representative, which they both said they would do. I know Representative O'Malley said he saw a copy of a draft of a response. When I met with him last month, he was going to follow up to see where they were. I called my liaison on 2 different occasions and have never received a phone call back. So I just want you to know I did follow up on that.
Maybe we could ask Representative O'Malley to see if he can get an answer.
I did want to know that we did follow up on that.
I'm sure it'll happen sooner or later, but hopefully before the next phase.
All right, then that brings us to public comment. Please call 231-256-8109. Please come forward. If you have public comment, please call 231-256-8109.
Gwen Allgaier, Cleveland Township. So thank you for passing the Native Americans request. I think.
Yeah, we can't hear you at all. I'm sorry.
Thank you for passing the request from the tribe. I think it's just that we honor our neighbors and support them when they've had an age-old problem and they're just trying to come to some resolution. I think it's important that we support that. On septic, if your house burns down, you might die. If your septic is leaking, other people get sick. Very different, very, very different. I think our county's been working on this. People remember 1994, probably it was before that too. I think it's a really good step that we're going to find out where the septics are, how old they are. For those of us who, my neighbor this summer, I'm on a lake. One day she said, you know what, I had the flu last night, but it's gone. I don't know what it was. Nobody ever figured it out. Didn't last 24 hours. And oh, by the way, we're testing water, and she had a enteric bacteria in her water in her kitchen that summer, around then. That was from septic and water being, intermixed. It's real. It's our health. It's the health of our citizens. It doesn't go away because people really care that they're drinking good, healthy water. This is a really big deal. This is right up there in terms of concerns. So I think Tony's idea of having a pilot program in a selected area is a great idea. It would get us off stuck. We've been stuck for over 26 years with a lot of unhappy citizens. Let's do a pilot. Let's take a step. Let's learn some more. Let's prove that we're meeting the citizens where they are. There's a concern. That's the job of the commission. And that's a very reasonable way to start. And I tell you what, all the water people, the clean water people, et cetera, when they heard the idea of a pilot program, they were like, great, let's start. Good place to start. It's a compromise. And that's one of the things that we do in government is we compromise. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Hearing none and no phone calls, then we'll move on to commissioner comments. Commissioner West.
Yes, thank you. Look, to demonstrate what a glutton for punishment I am, I left last week's meeting and went home and rewatched our 7-hour meeting. And I want to take a. I spent a lot of time thinking about the discussion we had, and I wrote Chairman Bunnick an email that I chose not to send, but I chose instead to read it tonight, and I'd like to read the email, and it comes from a lot of reflection. I spent a great deal of time reflecting on Chairman Bunnick's assertion at last week's executive board meeting, suggesting that I was just making the county look bad when I referenced the commitments in our anti-racism resolution. After much reflection, I think it's responsible for me to say that I disagree. In fact, I believe this board's unanimous agreement to commit our full attention to advocating for equality, equity, and improved quality of life and health for all residents speaks well for our county and should be a point of pride. I do believe, however, that I have the responsibility to be thoughtful and open to how best to continue our conversations on the issue of race in order that we can move forward to meet the commitments identified in our resolution. So my New Year's resolution is I commit to moving forward knowing that we must be open, patient, and thoughtful. I also commit to working with all of us to identify a 2021 goal that will honor our commitment to anti-racism while at the same time respecting the views of my 6 fellow commissioners. Thank you.
Yes, we have public comment here.
I'm going to put you on speakerphone shortly. Okay, please proceed.
This is Tricia Dent from Cleveland Township, and I just wanted to thank Commissioner Answorthy and Commissioner Rettenbach for their service to the county. The board will miss you, and I also wanted to thank the board for moving forward with the mapping project to see where we're at with well and septic records in our county. Thank you for moving forward. Take care.
Thank you. Is there any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Redenbach.
I would just like to say thank you to all of the voters in District 7, Empire, Glen Arbor, and Cleveland Townships who supported me over these past 2 years. And it's been my honor to be of service, and I've tried to represent you as honestly and fairly as I can. I really, I'm going to miss my commission duties, but I feel like my torch is being passed to a very worthy person. So I'm sure she'll do a great job for you. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you very much. Commissioner Silislo.
I just wanted to thank both Commissioner Rettenbach and Commissioner Answorthy for their service. It has been a great honor to be able to serve with the both of you. And I deeply appreciate your commitment and your work in so many areas over these past few years. And I look forward to hearing from you both and keeping us on the good path when we should stray. And I also want to comment that Gwen Algar said it best. Commissioner Answorthy, I think we are taking a right step, and in January, we should definitely try the pilot. I think you're exactly correct. It's something to move forward with, and look forward to working on that with my fellow commissioners and finding a good model that we might be able to utilize. So again, thank you both.
Any other comments? Seeing none, then we move on to the approval of financials. Commissioner Lochner.
Yes, thank you. I would move that we approve amendment number 20-014, 20-015, and 20-016.
I have different numbers myself.
Melinda, did you get my email about the other ones and the additional transfer from today?
Nope. Nope, go ahead.
Okay, I mean, I don't, are we doing the ones, the 2015? I thought we did those already.
No, those, you need to do 14, 15, 16, that's.
Okay.
Oh, I, yeah,
But she
yeah,
had those
I
three.
mean this
requests, which-
afternoon.
Yeah, this afternoon, then you were sent 17, 18, 19, and 20, and Jen is here to answer any questions for those.
Okay,
But-
well, then my motion to include those also.
Okay.
And yeah,
Is there a second for it? I will second that.
Okay. Commissioner Ansari seconds it. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0.
so I would then recommend fund transfer. Approval of fund transfer, looking for it. What was that number? I just saw it.
20-008.
008, yes. Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. Move to approve claims counts $332,309.36.
Okay, seconded by Wessel and Ansari. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 0. We have a post
And
audit.
Yep, post audit, $2,054,446.78.
Support.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0.